Hi, I'm Ralph Preston, and we're back again doing another Stroke Buddies Stroke Survivors Support Group meeting. We do these every Tuesday. You can join us live at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, or you can watch them on YouTube if your schedule doesn't allow you to join us. Today, we're lucky to have someone I met recently, and that would be Tawny Romero Golic. And we met in a Centrilla World Stroke Day, and the first thing I noticed was her cool glasses. And I said something, and we started interacting. And when I heard her story, I was really saddened at what she had to go through and the way our fragmented medical community system works or doesn't work. But she persisted, and she advocates for people, and we're going to get into for hidden invisible illness or hidden deficits. I almost confused the two. And so let me introduce Tawny. And Tawny, first thing I guess I wanted to do is tell everybody a little bit about your story and what happened to you, and more importantly, your whole reaction and how you kept going, and how you kept beating against it till you got you the answers you needed.
Totally. So, Shalom, I'm Tawny. That is my actual real name. I added the Neuro Mermaid because I found mermaiding, and I think you can see it. My tail has my brain scan on it. I'll bring it up closer. So I actually swim in this is my actual brain scan. It's just superimposed on both sides. So that's the aneurysm that ruptured and is coiled now. So I put the name Neuro Mermaid because, neurological things are wrong with me. I'm neurodiverse, all that kind of stuff. And I was 28 when this happened. So I say all the time, I understand why I was misdiagnosed, but I feel like I am alive for a reason to kind of let other people know that you do have to advocate for yourself. So I was a special education teacher, normal day at school. It was Cinco de Mayo, so May 5th. I drove home, and I know when I say that, everyone thinks, oh, you were out drinking, you hit your head, that's what happened. I'm like, no, this happened before I even left the house. So I actually was in the shower, and it came out suddenly. I felt like someone hit me with a baseball bat in the back of my head. Like if I would have been out, I would have looked around. I luckily am tall enough that I grabbed the shower and I just held myself there for a second. And then I slid down and I started pounding on the bathtub because my brother was home. So luckily he was home from college. And I try and tell people it's not black or white. The amount of survivors I meet it wasn't that I couldn't talk. I was having difficulty talking because I thought I've never been in this much pain. So I was still rationalizing. When my brother, I go, throw my robe on me. I don't want you to be scarred for life, So I wasn't that not lucid, I was with it. I was making jokes. I was telling him, and he put his arm around me and was like, I can carry you. And I said, no, let me walk. So I walked, but I needed support. I was talking, but I was having difficulty finding my words. I just kept rationalizing that I've had migraines since I was 15. For some reason, I just thought, you've just never had one like this. I now know if something comes out suddenly, that is not normal. That was a pop, that my aneurysm ruptured. I did throw up right away. I'm extremely sensitive to light, but I did the horrible thing that a lot of us do. Let me just go to sleep and see how I feel. Just give me time, okay? So not only did my mom did want to take me to the emergency room right away. I said no, okay? The next day, she left to go visit her mom because it was Mother's Day weekend. So she flew out of town. She called my dad and was like, how's Tawny doing? And he said, she's just sleeping. She's sleeping a lot. And that was where I started noticing something wasn't right, was like, I could not stay awake. Like I would be like talking to someone, like I was calling off work, and I would be like trying, like falling asleep. And so my parents actually thought maybe I had meningitis, because now my neck was stiff. I was sleeping. And of course the pain was still happening. So finally my dad took me to the emergency room that night. He got home from work. I remember telling him when we were driving, I knew that road and I knew that there was only one lane going each way, but I see our truck and I see the same truck like this. So I was seeing double. And when I went into that emergency room, I get it. I walked in as a 28-year-old. I said, I think I have a migraine. I'm a migraine sufferer. But I said every single thing. Worst headache of my life came on suddenly. I said I had shooting pain above here, the back of my head. I threw up. My neck is stiff. All of these things. My dad even asked if I should have a spinal tap, and they just said no. They gave me, the IV fluids and everything. And then they actually shot me up with nerve blockers here, and in the back of my head. I now know and advocate pain is there for a reason. Before you just numb somebody, you need to check. You would check under the hood. If your car started making weird noises, you wouldn't just turn up the freaking music and keep driving it and hope it just gets better. Okay. So please learn from me. If something is hurting, it's there for a reason. Your body's telling you something's not right. So I know now that I have to say, I understand what I look like, but I need you to scan me. I'm demanding a scan. And if you are going to deny me, then I want a copy of my medical records. Because I left that emergency room. It was a weekend. So I went home. I called my neurologist at the time. It was the weekend. So I got probably the phone call you all get, where it's the automated thing. If it's an emergency, go to the emergency room. If not, call back on Monday. So I waited till Monday because I thought, I already went to the emergency room. They already told me to just basically suck it up and stop being a baby. So like, I'm just going to stop being a baby. So every day I did wake up and I felt like I was dying. I was like, something is not right. This hurts so freaking bad. I've never been in this much pain. And then Monday I called my neurologist. I understand why I went to the ER. So he heard, a medical doctor saw you and seemed you were fine. So he only prescribed me steroids and told me if by Friday it still persisted to call back. So I was in so much pain that I was just like, I can't stand this. Like, I need help. So I called my primary doctor and he's like, I can get you in. Again, my dad drove me. And he thought maybe your headache's so bad because you have allergies. So let's get your allergy medicine in shot form. So he actually injected me with my allergy meds, which gave me a little bit of relief for like a moment, and then sent me on my way. So I basically laid in bed for a week, just feeling like I was dying. And I remember one point I actually said, I was like, knock it off. The doctors looked at you and said, you're fine. Like, this is pain. You can get through it. Like, I was raised with suck it up, buttercup is our family attitude. So I was like, you got this. And then I finally woke up on the 12th and my left eye was crossed in. And that's when I was like, that is not normal. That's something that needs to be seen. So I looked up where my insurance was covered and I drove away from the emergency rooms that had helped me and drove further away to the hospital that I thought my insurance suggested. When I showed up there, I was having difficulty walking, so I actually got wheeled in. My dad went to go find parking, and as soon as I went to check in, I was keeping my eye closed because it made me feel very disoriented. I opened up my eye and I started telling her all the symptoms, and there was a nurse in there and she immediately stood up and was like, come with me right now. Took me right back there. I got scanned and I want to say within 30 minutes, they were like, you have a subarachnoid hemorrhage. We do not have a doctor here who can do the scans or the procedures that you need to do. So we don't know if you're still bleeding or where the bleed is. And I deal with things with humor. So I looked at my dad and I said, oh, great. So my worst fear is correct. I was right. That's great to be right about this. And I got life flighted to the Cleveland Clinic. Then from the Cleveland Clinic, what they explained to me, I do remember, which I know is very different from a lot of people. I remember the life flight. I remember coming into the hospital. I have a piercing in my ear, and I remember not being able to get that out. And I was like, are you going to have to cut my ear off? And they're like, oh my God, we'll just cut the piercing. Like, it's fine. So I was still making jokes, and I was still asking questions and still very lucid. And so when they went in to do the angiogram, he said they were amazed because I was still rupturing. So for that entire week, I was bleeding. And so I was using neck massagers too. So I was massaging blood up and down my spinal cord. Like, it is, the doctor said, I don't say this often, but it is a miracle that you are walking and talking. There's no reason for it because you were bleeding that entire time. So I did luckily have the coil procedure. I did not have a craniotomy. But because of the misdiagnosis, they were not able to put the stent in to keep the coils from moving. So the first 6 months of my recovery, every single month, I was getting scanned to see if the coils were holding, to see if I needed a shunt because I had so much built up spinal cord fluid. So I was very, very lucky for the fact that I did not, people always ask me, oh, you got your smile back, you can walk. And I'm like, I luckily never lost the ability to walk, to talk, to smile. But I did have, my eye was crossed in. I did have a lot of difficulty with numbers. Like when they would ask me, or like to do the months, I would miss months sometimes. So there was just like, I tell people it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. There were some things that were damaged and some things are not. And I don't know until I try. So I remember being in the ICU and, doing those neurological tests. Like, do you know your name? Do you know where you are? And I was able to do all of those things. And then later in the night, when they asked me again, I was like, why do you keep asking me this? Like, I already passed that. And she's like, well, as the blood is breaking up, things can change. And I know that's when then the anxiety and like the PTSD started, because I would wake up sometimes and like my hearing would be different. And I would have to ask, like, I would call a nurse. I'm so sorry. Like, sorry. The multitasking still hasn't totally gotten back. But just seeing how precious life is and how much things can change, and the things we take for granted. So I did have difficulty. I mean, I couldn't even lift my chin down or to the side. That was part of my rehab. So I look at how far I've come and I'm so grateful, but I know that it was because I saw that they were like, it's like a flip of a coin. And they're like, even if we caught it right away. So the fact that we missed you for a whole week just kind of gave me this, like, I made it through it for a reason and I have to use my voice. And I could hear the other people in the ICU not be able to use their voice or not know who they were. And I was just like, I came out okay. So it is my duty to step up and say things. So like I did go to social media. I had no idea what I was doing. It was like, I had a hashtag brain aneurysm, hashtag brain surgery, had like, it was a mess, but it's really cool to see. My family would tease me. They're like, we could tell when you had your pain meds because you would like write a novel and it would not really make sense. But I just wanted to like get it out of there because I was so worried. What if I remember everything now, but later I don't? And what if I can't say this? So like, I just started developing this, like, I know most of us already don't have a filter, but I just was like, what's the point? Like, if I think it's coming out. If it popped into my head, there's a reason for it. So blah. Still working on that. Some of my friends love that about me. Some people don't. I warn them. I'm like, if you want honesty, I got you. I can't sugarcoat things all the time. But I just remember how alone I felt, because they just kept telling me, I don't know, everything's so different with you. And like, I could hear the nurses like, how's the young one doing? And, you know, I was extremely sound sensitive. So when they would come in the room and yell, like I had earplugs in and I would have headphones on that had no music, and I would have my pillow wrapped around my head, and they would be like, good morning, how are you? And I was like, oh my, did you read my chart? Like, I can't handle loud noises. And they're like, everybody else is opposite from you. Most patients are older, they're anyways. Most people have, you know, where they can't hear. So we're just used to yelling at people. So it was just really hard, because everybody just kept saying how different I was, and like my eye crossed in instead of crossing out. So it was just very weird. And so I didn't reach out to the community in the beginning, because just all of my doctors and everyone just kept saying like, I don't know, you're so different. And I know that we all are different. And that's what I've learned. You know, every brain is different. Every brain injury is different. We all recover differently, but like to just keep hearing like, I don't know. And then, you know, they're like, let us know if there's any changes. And you're like, okay, well now I can hear the nurses, but it's like, you guys are right behind my ear. And they just look at you. And I know that they have a class on bedside manner, but I swear my doctors were not there, because the look of horror on their face, sometimes they're just like, you're like, this is happening. Is that normal? And they're like, I'm going to take note. And you're like, can you tell your face that it's okay? And like that I'm okay. And I remember when I went basically from the ICU for a week. And then I was only in a normal room for one day. And then they sent me home. And I was nervous about that. I'm like, I just left the ICU and you're just going to kick me out. Like I just had brain surgery. Is that smart? And they're like, you're fine. You don't need to stay here. And my mom, I remember her asking like, is it okay for her to leave with her eyes still like that? And it's actually very interesting. I only have one picture of me with my eye crossed. And it's because I said I worked in special education. I worked every day with one kiddo. So when I stopped showing up for a week, he had a total meltdown, and was like, he thought that he had like hurt me. And so the mom was like, I know it's a really long drive, and I'm sure like you don't have to see him. And I'm like, obviously bring him. So he came, and I was able to tell him like, you know, you didn't do this to Miss Tawny, like this happened, and I'll be back at school. And so I didn't want to scare him. So I did lift up, I wore a sleep mask over my face. So I only have one picture where my eyes crossed in, but I'm sitting like this, so you can't really tell. So everybody's like, your eye wasn't crossed in. I'm like, I don't know why, but I feel like when I was my worst, I did not document, which I wish I did, because I could have seen how much progress I had. Yeah. And so anyone new in their recovery, I know you're like, I don't want anyone to ever see this. I don't want to see myself at my worst. You will not stay there. You will get better. It may not be as fast. It may not be in the way that you want it to be, but you will have progress. So document those things, because there's sometimes you feel like your recovery, you're like, it does. And I still sometimes catch myself. Like, it feels like I'm, you know, one step forward, three steps back. And I try and remind myself there is no backtracking. I'm never going backwards. Sometimes it's just a sidestep, and it's like progress is not linear. So from there, I'm sorry, I just went off on a tangent. I found that I luckily only did physical therapy. And because of my training in special education, I kept asking, like, you sure I don't need to see a speech pathologist? Because I still kind of slur my words a little bit. And they just kept saying, like, you're good enough, which at the time I was like, you're right. I'm fighting so many things, like pick your battles. But now I'm just so mad, because I'm like, I wish I would have said, would you say that to your kid? Like, would you tell them like you're good enough? Because they just kept seeing that I was already passing. Like, I remember the first physical therapy, I showed up and I had my hair braided. And she's like, did you do that yourself? And I said, yeah. She's like, okay, cool. You already passed like so many of my tests. And so I feel like because I was passing so many things, that the things that were not very great, like my executive functioning, they were just like, you're good enough. And so I wish that with more of the physical therapy and care, that I know that they're like, we just want to get you back to like regular, but it's like, what about getting me back to better and not just like, that's good enough. So I did actually, even though I was working at the school, my sick days ran out. I had not been working there long enough to qualify for FMLA. So I actually ended up having to go back to work as early as August. So I had it in May, June, July, August, just 3 months later, against doctor's orders. Like, he had to write me a note and say she can only work for this many hours. She can't lift things, like all of these different requirements, because my equilibrium was still so off. I was still super sensitive to sound. So like, going into a school of screaming kids was not conducive for my recovery at all. And so I feel like I developed definitely an unhealthy, like, well, you have to work, because if you have this other brain surgery, what if you don't come out of it as okay? So like, push through the pain, work through it, and just like, kind of like a squirrel, stack that away for when you can't do it. And so I just started getting used to the fact that, I'm sure all of you guys can relate to, people ask like, how are you? And you just start saying, I'm fine. Because you're sick of listing all the things that are going wrong. And I told my mom, like, I started journaling more, writing gratitude, because I was like, all my journal is my blood pressure, when I took my meds, at all of these different things. I was on anti-seizure meds. Within 6 months, I did get tested for depression. They put me on antidepressants. And if they work for you, I'm all for it. And that's wonderful, but they did not work for me. I felt like they just made me numb to the world. I said, I don't feel like I want to unalive now. I just feel like I'm watching life happen around me. I go and I'm showing up and I'm here, but I was like, I feel like a shell of a person. And I just feel like, why do I have to keep dealing with all of this every day? Like, and I don't have kids. So, and my boyfriend at the time broke up with me. He said, this is too much. I can't. So, I definitely had a really, really dark place, but I realized, I say it was the kids and my family. I was like, I can't give up. Like, they care so much about me. And so I just kept plugging in. But then that's how I found plant-based medicine. And so I advocate for it, because I can be in the worst of moods and I can smoke, and then it's like, it's not that bad. You know what? Your head doesn't hurt that bad. You can get through this. And I wish I have it somewhere in a journal. I don't remember the day when I finally woke up and I wasn't in constant pain. When you have built up spinal cord fluid, I tell people, I'm like, your brain feels like it's being squished. Your brain feels swollen and it feels like it's being squished all at the same time. And it's the most horrific thing, because as soon as your eyes open, you're just in excruciating pain. But I just kept thinking that, I was like, it's eventually going to end. And so I really try to stick with that, like, you have a 100% success rate. Like, all of us here, you made it through your worst day. You made it through the day that you didn't think that you could get through it. And so I just really latched on to practicing gratitude every morning. And a lot of times it was just like, I'm alive, I have a roof over my head, and I have my dogs. And so I'm a big animal person, because a lot of days you just want to stay in bed, but like, I will get out of bed to make sure that they have water. I will get out of bed to make sure they have food. And like, a lot of the times I go on a walk, it's for them. And I remember them telling me, because I have 2 big dogs, that they were like, you might not be able to walk them by yourself. So it was a huge victory the first day that I was able to walk one of them. And then they were like, I don't know if you should walk both of them at the same time. And finally I did. So now I think of it as a huge, big deal, that like, I look at the progress. I'm like, I'm live on my phone while walking the dogs and walking around and doing things. Like, if you would have told me early in my recovery, I mean, the doctors told me, no, you're not going to be able to do that. So I love doctors and neurosurgeons. That's why I'm alive, but I'm a big advocate of, you have to do what's right for you. And I wish a lot of times they wouldn't tell you you can't. Like, they just kept telling me, like, you're going to be as good as you are in 6 months. And I feel like I made a lot more progress year 2 or 3. But if I went off of what the doctor said, I would have just been like, well, this is me, so take it or leave it. I'm good enough. And that's so not true. I'm 6 years out, and I feel like I'm just now starting to get better regulation over my emotions. Like, people talk all the time about your memory, But I don't feel like enough is talked about the emotion regulation. Like my mom was like, I really wish they would have told me that it was like dealing with 15-year-old Tawny. I mean, I used to say I would Hulk out. Like if you upset me, it was just like I would fly off and have no control over my emotions and what I said, and it would be terrible. And like my husband, my now husband, I'm like, I feel bad. I have said some things that you should probably never say to another person. And in that moment, I'm not in control. I am in Hulk mode and I can't. And then I have learned through the years now, I breathe, I walk away. I've also learned a big thing for me has helped that sometimes just telling people, like, I just want to vent. I don't want you to problem solve for me. I don't want you to try to give me suggestions right now. Like right now, I just want you to let me vent, because I feel like with an invisible illness, everyone does. The only way they can help is by suggesting things to you. And sometimes it's just like, I don't want everybody's suggestions. Like I know all the stuff to do. I just want to like complain for a moment. So it's just really helped sharing that online. It's also helped me not feel so alone, because I remember the first time, like I shared the Hulk out thing, other people were like, oh my God, I did that too. I had no idea like that was, I go, I know you were beating yourself up, telling yourself like all these horrible things, which doesn't help it. Like it really doesn't. We know that wasn't right. I'm like, it's almost like dealing with a child. I'm like, I have adult temper tantrums and I have to learn how to walk away and regulate them. So it's been helpful sharing that. I've also had a lot of like, I feel like breakthroughs by sharing it online. And I have like documented proof now, like Ralph was able to see, you know, my speech and everything. And I have people who have watched the whole time. They're like, it's amazing to see you're multitasking again and how much you can handle. So I'm all for sharing it. And I know some people like, I could never share everything with the internet. And I'm like, people forget. First of all, most people are so busy with themselves, they do not care. So the stuff that I was really scared to share or anything usually did not make that big of an impact. I'm like, nobody was really that shocked or confused by it. So I'm all for just sharing and being in communities like this. So Ralph, I really appreciate you giving me the time. I think I covered most of it.
You think?
I'll just keep talking.
You had the medical community kind of failed you in some ways, and you admitted that if you were able to rewind the tape and play it again, you might do some things differently. Talk to us a little bit about what's your advice to other people in a similar situation. I'm not talking on day one. For a lot of people that just get really frustrated with the medical community, and a lot of times they give up, and that's sad. You didn't give up. You learned a lot. What is there anything you can pass on to other people about that process from your journey?
Totally. The phrase, because I have gone right after it, I went into the emergency room. I thought my coil was slipping, and I was like, because I was having really bad migraine, and they were like, I think you're fine. And I told them, because I had learned the phrase where you say, if I'm demanding a scan and you're denying me, I want a copy of my medical documents where you are denying me a scan. And usually when you say that, they're like, fine, just give her the scan. Yeah, they're like, just give her the scan, because they don't want a medical documentation where they denied you. So I do use that. Also, I recorded, because my memory was not very good, and like I have a hard time processing new information. Like I'll sit there and I'll be like, yeah, I get it. And then on the drive home, I'm like, wait, hold on. They just said I have to have this done. And my mom would be like, it seemed like you understood it. And I was like, I'm not processing as quickly as I was. So I started recording, which most doctors are fine. I know every state is different. I always ask them, because here's my thought process. If I ask you if I can record you and you say no, you're not a doctor I want to go see, because you should have nothing to hide. None of the doctors in all the states I've lived have ever had a problem with it. I also found like that was very helpful, because I you get sick of telling you, I love that my family all cared, but it was like, I would have to come home, tell my mom about it, tell my dad about it, tell my grandma, tell my grandpa, tell my aunt, tell everybody. So when I started recording it, I would just literally send them the doctor note. Then I'm like, here's what they said. You listen. I don't want to keep reliving it. So it's important to talk about it, but also when I started journaling, I was like, no wonder you're freaking depressed. All you talk about is all the things that are wrong with you on repeat. Like that's it. Like your day is just filled with doctor, and it is frustrating. So I would always find music or stuff while you're waiting at the doctor's office, because they never start on time. You're always sitting in the office. You're always refilling out medical things. I do ask for copies of everything now. Like whenever I go and get a scan, it's much easier if you stay there and you say you want a copy of it. You just sign a quick little paper. Whereas if you leave the hospital, it's like a much harder process. I also find that important to have, because I have been at doctors' offices and I'm like, they're like, oh, we should have it. And I'm like, it's so nice you guys are computer and automated, yet you don't have it on file. So I would hand them over my disc. They would be able to look at my scans and then they would give it back to me. And I'm actually dealing with that. I'm really upset. Since I've been living out here in California, I had handed over all my documents to only find out this summer that they have none of it. So I was supposed to get scanned. They gave me 2 years. That was during COVID. So it's been 3 years now since they have scanned me, and I have been on the phone with the doctor. My mom actually ended up calling in August for me, because she's like, this is ridiculous that she still can't get the scan. They're asking me for the code for my coil. And I was like, I don't have the make and model, and none of my doctors do either. And I'm like, it's weird that I've had scans multiple times, but you guys will not do the scan until you have that. So I would love to tell you that the frustration is going to end. It doesn't. You just have to realize that it is a system and it is flawed. So the more you can just have copies of your things, and like, I usually call them when I'm on a walk doing something else, because when I sit on hold and you have that freaking music going, I feel like it just stresses me. So I've also sometimes had to have my mom. I've had to learn that like it's okay to ask for help. And, some people need to have someone advocate for them. So asking for help in making doctor's appointments, and just a lot of times I have to break it down to them. I know that they have my chart, but I think they forget, because they'll rattle off things and I have to ask them, can you please slow down when you're talking to me? I have a hard time understanding. I may need you to repeat. And earlier I would have just tried to keep up, but now I'm like, no. Like, this is my health. This is me. And I need to make sure I understand. So if that means you have to talk to me on the phone for 10 minutes, like that's what's going to happen. So I've just gotten a lot more stern with what I want, but I also know, you get more bees with honey. So realize the person on the phone, it's not their job. They're not doing everything. So getting frustrated at them means nothing. And I'll say that. I'll be like, I'm so sorry. You can just understand my frustration. It's been 3 months of me trying to get this scan. Can you please tell me the next step? Because I have noticed they tend to just be like, you need to just call this doctor. And and that's what I said. I'm like, you guys have ping ponged me between you two. So I just need to know how I get this problem solved. And then finally she like gave me the steps, instead of just call back your neurologist. Now call your neurosurgeon. Now call this doctor, call that doctor. So advocating, but also being nice about it.
Yeah, it's tough out there, but you're determined for sure. And that's what you have to be. And, I tell people get their records now, because it's a lot harder to get them later. Sounds like they've lost some of yours. That would be a real reason to have all your records. That would be a nightmare to not be able to get your coil number and not be able to get a scan when they've done it before. I mean, I'd be pounding the desk or something, or hanging up and saying a bunch of bad words. Anyway, I thought I'd open it up for a sec. I do want to get into, I'd love for you at some point to talk a little bit about mermaiding, and maybe give us a list of your animals. That was pretty incredible. But I thought before we got there, Then I'd open it up and see if anybody's out has got any questions.
Wait to see your play. And I, being the naive idiot, said,
I don't really have any questions. You kind of explained your story, but you did mention your executive functions. You were having problems with that. You mean just by like your outbursts and just that kind of like
that, and like problem solving, like for me to get out of the house, like, you know, oh, you need to make sure you have the keys. Do you have your wallet? Like, do you have everything? Like, I will get to the car and be like, where's my purse? Where's my phone? Like, I misplace things, and it's like, I don't.
Yeah, you did a lot of visual research.
I choose the hard way. A lot of times that's what my mom says. She's like, you, like, there's like an easy path and you're over here like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
Well, that's the fun of head trauma, but yeah.
I mean, I was like, and I have ADHD, which I was diagnosed earlier, so I know I already struggled with that. It was more just the stroke has made it blaringly obvious that, and so it's gotten better and I work at it, but I don't like quite trust myself, if that makes sense. Like, I would rather have someone be like, hey, we're leaving for a flight. Like, I still ask my husband when I fly anywhere, I'm like, when do I need to be at the airport? And he's like, you've been flying for how long? You should know. And I'm like, I don't trust myself with numbers. I don't trust myself that I will give myself enough time. So like, I need you to tell me. And I was not that way before. Like, before it was like, I got the plan, I know what I'm doing. And now I'm like, help.
You also mentioned that your hearing was wacky like that. Mine was too. Like, I can hear what's going on like 2 rooms over. I can't tell you what they said over in that corner, but I can hear a couple rooms that way. That's why I wear headphones, because my spatial awareness is kind of effed up, and I don't really enjoy that.
And I don't know, were you sensitive? Like, was it certain not necessarily volumes, but like bassy voices? Like, my dad could not talk to me for a very long time. Like,
I wasn't sensitive to noise like you had explained. I have wacky hearing now. I don't know. See, I was in a coma. So I was in a coma for all this, so I was not aware of what changes my body went through. I just got to wake up to like, here, these are all the differences. Fucking sort it out, you know?
I'd love to say that goes away. I still find myself, so this is one of the animals, a dog who needs so much attention, is that like, I remember, I think it was just last year, someone's like, can you ride a bike? And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't since my stroke. Like, let's see. Like, and that's what I just say for things. I'm like, I just try and we find out. And that is actually what happened with the mermaiding. Was I played water polo. I started as young as 7th grade. I was on swim team, so I was a very good swimmer. And I found the mermaid community just scrolling YouTube, and I was like, wait, people actually do this? Like, I could be an actual mermaid. So my job at the time, I was opening up oysters for pearls inside. And I'm like, well, mermaids love pearls. Like, I should just get a tail. And our rental house has a pool. So I was like, I could totally do this. And so I sat on the edge of the pool in the tail. And when I went to go do my first swim, I drowned. Like, I seriously, water went in my nose. I spit up. I was choking. I stood. I was in the short, shallow end. And I started bawling my eyes out because I was like, I'm never going to be able to do this. Like, I can't. And I go, I never realized how much our brain just does things. Like, I go, you have to remember to blow air out of your nose, keep your mouth closed, open your eyes, move your arms and your legs. And I was like, oh my God, I don't think my body and brain can do this anymore. And then I looked down at the tail and I started laughing. I was like, you're not a real mermaid. Like, this is fucking ridiculous that you're crying over this. Like, this is so silly. And so it was finally like the one thing where I could not compare myself to how I used to be. There was never Tawny in a mermaid tail. So you can't say, well, this is hard now. This isn't, you never did this before, so stop. And because it's that magic and that silliness, it let me be able to do it and not be so hard on myself. Whereas like going back and working in special education, I came home crying every single day because I could tell where my deficits were. We did testing where I used to get 99%, and all of a sudden I'm failing and having to retake tests. So I could see what I was doing wrong. I could see how I used to be and how I am now. Whereas mermaiding, there was never a Tawny the Mermaid before. So I can't be frustrated when it's hard. I can't be mad at myself or compare myself. So that's why I like the mermaiding. And there's also just something about water. It's just so calming to me. I don't know if anybody else, when they're under the water, like just that silence and just like that peace. So there was a lot of times I would put my tail on and really not swim, just kind of float around and just move my legs up and down and go under the water and like sometimes just scream because it is frustrating. And so I learned to stop trying to just have that toxic positivity that I think people want people with survivors, like to always be positive. And it's like, I am positive most of the time, but does it not suck? Like, do I not sometimes be like, God, I wish I didn't have to deal with all these things. Like all my other friends just get to like have a life where I'm over here battling doctors all the time and doing all these things. And what I found was mermaiding, I can't be like, well, it should be this way. It's a magical made up thing. There isn't how it should be. I could be however I want to be.
I think that survivors run into a lot of trouble when they start comparing their old life to their new life. I tell people you got to throw out the rulers or at least get a new ruler, because the only thing you can come up is empty, in the sense when you compare, because things aren't the way they are, but that's okay. I said this right before I had this realization, right before I walked out of the rehab hospital and got back in the wheelchair after I did. And I said, I'm going to be the best new me I can be. But people that's why anniversaries are so difficult for some people, because you start thinking about what you used to be able to do. But I think it's important to focus on, like you have, on what you can do. The fact that, we're still here. Maybe we have a purpose, and but a lot of people have trouble getting there, and that's sad for them.
I like how you put that. Oh, Simone, I'm sorry, did I talk over you? Did you want to talk?
No.
Oh, okay. Is I say that because a lot of people will be like, oh, good. So because I went right back to teaching. I also went back to bartending at a freaking concert venue. I joke, I think honestly that I was still very sound sensitive. I just forced my body to not be so sound sensitive anymore because I just threw it into loud situations. Because I still think I do like volumes and things turned down. But I would tell people, they're like, oh, it's like you're back to normal. It's back to you. And I was like, no, I don't think you realize. I'm like, Tawny died. She's dead. There's no more her. I am a brand new person. So you can get to know this new person. But I am not going back. I mean, I was a special education teacher. I was applying for my master's. I thought I had a whole plan. And then it was like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. And just more of, it's almost been harder for my family because they're still just like, don't you want to bartend or don't you want to do these things? I'm like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. I love people, but I have social anxiety. When I'm around too many people, it takes, like, I feel like a battery that just gets zapped. Like, I love being with people, but when I'm out and around all that stimulation and all those different people, I end up needing like 2 or 3 days after to just like be by myself.
I agree. Oh, sorry, Ralph. I agree. Oh my goodness. It's crazy whenever you go out anymore. It's that energetic exchange tends to be very overwhelming. And I find that on this journey, the more I'm healing, the more those sensitivities kind of become present. I myself, guess your story was very parallel to some of the things that I experienced as well. I was diagnosed with RCVS syndrome, I had been going to the hospital for almost 9 days, 10 days, repetitively telling them that I needed help, and with this feeling like somebody had drove an axe in the back of my head. And it just kept coming and going. It would come and go 3-4 times a day and completely disrupt everything. It was like somebody took me and flipped me upside down. It's funny you mentioned the Cleveland Clinic too. I live in Cleveland. Are you from Ohio?
So my parents
Back
still
to-
live there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Very
I went to Kent
interesting.
State.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm up in Cleveland, up in
Okay. So you
yeah.
probably
So that's
know,
pretty.
so the Agora is the concert venue I worked at. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's one of my favorite places. I've seen some of the best shows there.
Well, hopefully,
That's
I
funny.
don't know when I'm gonna go back. I'm actually throwing it up there. My birthday's next month, that I might go next month. But if I do, we should try and meet up, because I have noticed when I meet up with other survivors, it's just there's a bond, there's something, we've all been through something.
Yeah, I would love that. I think that's really neat. I've been trying to find people from Ohio that I could
From
actually
Akron.
meet in person.
Oh, Akron!
Yes, yes.
Hey, you're
Wow.
closer to me.
Yes, yes.
I didn't know you were down in Akron, Maryland. That's cool
Yes,
to know.
I am. Yes.
Yeah, but you
I
have
was going
great
to say,
stories.
if
Thank
you
you
like
for sharing.
people, I think you found something every bit as meaningful as being a bartender in terms of interacting with people. I know bartenders are necessary for people who sometimes need to unload on somebody and have nobody to unload on. But there's plenty of good interaction you can have in the survivor community. And I think what you're doing is, trying to help others is admirable. Well, heck, I do it. So obviously, I think, it has some value in it. Interesting, because I said something about right before I walked out, I said, I'm going to be the best new me I'm going to be. Right before that, I said to somebody, my old life is dead. It's gone. It's gone. And then I said, I'm going to be the best new me I can be. So I looked at it the same way. Like, that person died. Everybody in the rehab hospital was like, okay, put me in a wheelchair, send me home. And when I go through the front transom of the front door, I'm going to return to my old life. That's delusional. So you've managed a good level of acceptance. Unfortunately, people sometimes equate acceptance with giving up, which it has nothing to do with it. It has to do with the fact that you go, okay, I was dealt these cards, I have to play these cards. It's not like, okay, I'm going to set these cards down and go in the corner and have a pity party. That's not acceptance. That's you're not accepting yourself. You're not accepting what's happened to you.
Well,
So-
it kind of, my grandpa, he was like, once you get real mad and you're so upset about everything, he was like, at the end of it, what ends up happening? And I'm like, I don't know. I either like get over it or I problem solve it. He's like, exactly. So like, why do you spend so much time in that like anger? So Mel Robbins does this like 5-minute thing. If it's not going to matter in 5 years, I'm not going to spend more than 5 minutes. So I do. And I tell people, I'm like, is there not times where I've gotten off the phone with the doctor and I've like thrown my phone on the bed and start cussing up a storm and be so angry and livid? Absolutely. But I don't unpack and stay there, because I'm like, you know what? In 5 years, I might not even remember this stupid issue. And in 5 years, things could be so much better. So I'm not going to spend that much time being in here. So I really try and like pivot or perish. Like, you have to move. It isn't fair. Life isn't fair. Nothing makes sense all the time, but we're only given one life. So I'm like, I'm going to try and have as much happiness in that as I can. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to feel the other emotions. I think that's super important. And it was something that I used to, with depression, I used to beat myself up about being sad. And it took a therapist. She was like, how's that working out for you? She's like, so when you're feeling really bad and then you just like focus on all the things that are not. I'm like, yeah, I feel even worse. She's like, yeah, so why are you beating yourself up when you don't feel good? I'm like, I don't know. And so now I just try and be like, you know what, you're allowed to be sad, you're allowed to be mad, but I just don't want to stay there for that long.
Right.
Because I wake up.
But I find ranting, good. I would say I find ranting and raving for a couple of minutes beneficial. It gets it out and lets me move on. And I know I'm not going to stay there also. I actually sometimes write emails to people that I never send.
Delete it. Yep. Oh, I write out a lot of things, and I'm like, we're gonna walk away and reread that because I know you're not gonna want to send that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm kind of like you. I didn't have much of a filter before. When you said, if you want honest, we're good. But other than that, I was going, that's so totally me. And, you know, I think we lose a little bit of our filters. It's okay. You know, our filters a good thing. They're kind of they're kind of like society pushing its norms on us, if you will. So I'm not saying we should all run around and, you know, behave crazy and not be nice to each other, but you know, a little more honesty in the world, I don't think would hurt. A little more directness. So we certainly can find both of them in the stroke survivor community. Yeah, and some people even have, you know, PVA or PVA-like things where emotions are out of control. I know my emotions are out of control. I've always been empathetic my whole life. But after my stroke, I mean, it was weird. I would cry at things that other people were not finding poignant. And sometimes people would all be into something and I'd be going, I don't get it. Same with jokes. People tell a joke and I'd go, that's not funny. And then I would try and tell a joke that I thought was funny. I'm not good at telling jokes, so I probably shouldn't. And like nobody would, or I'd point out a situation that I thought was poignant or interesting or funny, and everybody'd like, give me that you're from outer space look. So you learn to quickly shut up about that. Give us a quick list of your animals, if you would. I found that pretty interesting. You and your husband, we have quite the zoo, basically.
We do. We have a mini zoo. So we have 2 dogs, 3 tortoises, a bearded dragon, snakes. I think the last time I counted 12, I don't know how many, saltwater fish tank. And then he does have tarantulas. So we have like basically where a kid's room would be is our animal room.
What kind of saltwater fish do you have?
We do have like a blue tang. So we have Dory. I always just, because I work with kids, I'm like, we have Nemo, we have Dory, we have Gil.
Yeah.
I wish I knew more of. I only know that Dory's a blue tang because I have it tattooed on me, and I was like, you can't get a fish tattooed and say it's a Dory fish. You have to know the actual name of it.
Yeah, that's true. All right.
And one of those snakes is a big old python, right?
Yes. And we have like a cage outside so that if they want to be outside in the sun, we can do that because we are in California.
I have a big ass parrot.
Tortoises make good pets. I have a friend who has one who started about like that. It's about like that now. He's had about 20 years.
I wish I would have gotten tortoises sooner. I tell people because they're low maintenance and I love watching them eat. So a lot of my friends with kids, I'm like, you should get a tortoise. It's not as much work as a dog or a cat. When you go out of town, you don't have to worry about someone watching it. Like, I mean, I highly suggest animals for sure. I know they have definitely helped with my mental health. But I did want to piggyback off of the emotion thing because I felt the same way. I still do. I cry when I'm happy. I cry, which I used to never cry. And in fact, in the beginning, I was embarrassed. Like I hated that I would cry so easily. And it took my neurosurgeon telling me, he goes, I'm like, is there something we can do about this? Because this is not functional. Like I'm crying all the time. I'm crying if I'm happy. I'm crying if I'm sad. And he's like, could it also be that you almost died and you got another chance and maybe you're just feeling things more? And okay, I guess you're right. Because early on I would cry at the drop of a hat. Now I don't cry as often, but I definitely, you know, like I will see a commercial and I will cry. I'm like, oh my God, that was so happy. Yes. And so I think normalizing that and talking about it more, because I thought that I was going crazy until someone else was like, oh yeah, no, emotion regulation is very common. I'm like, why? When you guys gave my mom a booklet of like, they didn't give her an actual booklet, but they told her to, you know, watch me around like showers that I could burn myself. I might not be able to regulate the temperature, but they didn't tell her like, hey, she's not going to be able to regulate her emotions. She's probably going to cry a lot. Like, it's like they don't talk about any of that stuff. I feel like I've only learned about it when I'm in other survivor groups that other people are like, oh my God, I do too.
I don't,
We-
I
we could
agree.
do-
I don't think they speak a whole lot into what trauma does to your body system and how it sets you in that state of fight or flight. And that loop is so difficult to get off of. That's why I started doing all this stuff, because I found that the breath and yoga, body movement, that somatic style of healing is really about you being able to process through the emotions of grief. I was so angry. Oh my gosh, when I woke up and I was stuck in this body and I couldn't take care of myself, I couldn't even get myself to a bathroom. Yeah, I was one angry woman, and I was not being quiet about it. I was just spewing it out on everybody, and it was horrible for everybody around me and for myself. And I had to learn that you would think that would be a key piece of what they give you, because when you don't figure those things out, you tend to store those emotions more inside your body, and it blocks your body from even being able to heal. It's wild. I agree. Great point. Sorry, Ralph, I didn't mean to cut you off, honey.
I've done this before, you know, I said in a meeting like this, okay, everybody who got PT, raise their hand, and everybody will raise their hand. Okay, everybody who got MT, meaning mental therapy of some kind, any kind, raise your hand. No one raises their hand. It's like they're going to deal with making us whole, but not really, because wholeness to me starts with how you feel about yourself and how you relate to the world.
Ralph, I got the closest thing to MT. I got 3 weeks with no voice. I couldn't speak. You don't realize how much you think. Like every person I know came and visited me in the hospital, and I couldn't speak to them. So that's like a whole lot of thought, and I had nothing to talk about, or I just had to sit there and think. And when I was done thinking, I got to think some more, because I wasn't lucky enough to have my brain shut down with the rest of my body. My brain was still way up there, high functioning like it was. And so, I mean, I got to sit there and think about everything, and think and think and think. And the more I thought, the more I realized, you know, I can sit there and be negative about this and let it be me, but I'm just going to let it be. Am I just going to let it be me? Am I going to lay down? Is that who I am? And I knew it wasn't. I knew all the answers to all those questions. The answers were no. So
I did that every night for an hour or two.
yeah.
72. I've been, you know, classic overthinker.
That might be the beginning of overthinking, but it's a good answer to a lot of problems. Is don't talk for a while and just think about things. You find answers a lot quicker.
Well, total opposite of it, but because of the anti-seizure meds, like I talk fast. In fact, my grandma joked, she's like, I kind of was hoping the stroke would slow you down a little bit so I could understand you. I'm like, grandma. But
only grandma could say that.
I know. Like, oh,
that makes me think. Are
you're
you
not
a millennial?
But the Keppra, and I was on Topamax. made it so I could not respond for like, you could count to 5. My mom would be like, are you hungry? And she could count to 5 before I could tell her. And I remember her vividly one time, like yelling at me, are you listening to me? And I was like, and this household, I was like, I hear you. I just don't understand as fast. I was like, I have to think about what you just said to me. Then I have to actually think about, am I hungry? And then I have to think the words to tell you that I'm hungry.
Yes.
Like, I was not aware of all that. Like most of us don't think about that. When someone asks you a question, you answer. But when you have a brain injury, I can't just answer you. I'm now all of a sudden aware that things are not just fluid. And so it was definitely different, but that was something that I, again, had to advocate for myself they just kept giving me more. They said I just wasn't on the right amount and just kept prescribing higher dosage. I don't know if anyone else experienced that.
They always seem to give you more rather than less. Isn't that interesting, Angelia? They always seem to give you more rather than less.
Americans are worried about their retirement accounts.
More.
Large
Yeah, and with the hydrocephalus, so like, because the pain pills were not helping, and I told them that. I was like, it's like throwing a Band-Aid on a big gash. Like, you're not really helping it. It's like dulling the pain a little bit. And so that's why with plant-based medicine, that helped me more. I did with the anti-seizure meds, like, again, they didn't want to taper me off. I tapered myself off, which I'm not telling anyone to do that. Don't do that. I know they were like, you could have had a seizure. And I'm like, well, the only way to prove to you that I was having such bad reaction. I was like, my body was literally telling you to stop, take it. Right around my face was all bumpy, red. Like my mouth was literally like, please stop taking this stuff. It's killing her. And it wasn't until I tapered myself off, I got myself down to just 5 milligrams. And I was like, I want to be completely off this. And she's like, we can't just do that. And I was like, well, I've been tapering myself off for a while now, and I feel a lot better and I can talk to you. And so it wasn't until I like actually proved to them that I did it, that they were okay with it. And then my neurosurgeon, I told him, he's like, well, wait, what are you doing? I see that you're not on this med anymore, this med. I'm like, cannabis. And he was like, honestly, I would prefer you do that. It's not going to kill your liver. So I do get a lot of hate for that. A lot of people, how could you survived your stroke and now you're going to throw it away? And I go, throw it away. This is making it so I can function. The pills that they gave me were bad. They were not helping me. And I was at the doctor's every freaking 3 months to have to get one pill for another pill for another pill. So like, I'm happy that I'm off all of those. It's been,
now that you're taking on those pills, you have to take these pills to
Yep.
cover up all the side effects. Yeah.
exactly. One pill turns into 5 other pills and you have to see another
Yeah.
doctor. So when I do get backlash like that, I do like to bring up, I'm like, well, my neurosurgeon seems to think it's fine. All of my doctors are like, whatever you're doing great. So keep doing it. And I just feel like that needs to be talked about more. I tell everybody's body is different. It may not help you, but the fact that they're just so quick to prescribe you a pill before they're going to try some, meditation, yoga. I really try homeopathic things because I'm like, you guys shoved pills in me and it did not help. It made me worse. So let my body try to fight this.
Have you changed your food intake and what you're doing for nutrition? Have you specialized a specific type of diet, or is it something that you're doing like on your own through other modalities?
So I have noticed I was actually going to get tested for celiac, because I don't know if anybody else, when you eat a lot of carbs, you feel like carb coma. You're just like, oh, so tired. And so I do try to eat low carb. Like, if I get a burger, I'll not have the bun, but like, I'll still enjoy my French fries. But I actually, 2 years ago, I found ketones. They're pure therapeutic ketones. So they kick your body into ketosis without you being on the keto diet. And that zaps my brain fog. Like, I mean, the first time I sipped it, in 20 minutes, I was like, oh my God, my brain is back. Like, I can think. So I really love that. And like supplements, I know a lot of people take turmeric, ginger, stuff like that. So I do find that super important. I notice like but do I still, eat fast food sometimes? Yes, but I can tell. I'm like, and now I feel like once you start taking better care of your body, like I notice the difference. I'm like, why did you eat all that junk? Like you wonder why you're moody now and tired, like you had freaking Jack in the Box yesterday. So, but I can't keep to like any sort of diet. I tried 21 days of clean keto and I was like, never again. Like that's just too much freaking work. Have you found
Yeah, it is. Keto is keto is really hard. I really have found that backing out specific fats and like milk, dairy, I don't do gluten anymore. And I limit, I sugar, I take sugar, or I don't take sugar, but I love sugar. I'm like an addict when it comes to that. But I'm very limited on what I allow in my body. I'll do dark chocolate today, I don't really, or I'll do something like a high cacao. I substitute things rather than taking supplements myself. And I find that using the food in a way that it is like medicine has been incredibly beneficial. I drink turmeric tea with ginger. I make these ginger shots to help my family stay healthier. And it's surprising to me how much it has helped our immunity. And I have found that with this stroke, it attacked my system. And my immune system is the most important one. That's my regenerative system. And I have to regenerate immunity, healthy immunity within my body for my body to be able to heal. I came home in a wheelchair. I couldn't move. And I couldn't move anything on my right side, and it was my dominant side. And now I'm up, I'm moving, I'm walking, I'm doing things, I'm healing, and I'm fixing structural problems that happened in my body because of the spasticity and the tone. So it's like, I noticed today that by eliminating these things and learning how to breathe, I just really have changed the game. I, like you, didn't start even healing until I was like 2 years into this. And then over the last 2 years, I actually got away from the wheelchair, got away from the cane, got myself upright. I'm in a program like that I created myself. Just like you, I love my somatic dancing and healing, and finding that femininity within my sensuality has allowed me to bring some of my confidence back as well. And it has been absolutely amazing, which I'm sure that's what the mermaiding does for you in a way. That's beautiful that you're doing that. That's super cool.
Thank you. It does. I'm glad you talked about it, because the confidence, like I go, it's so hard to rebuild that I literally could not trust myself. Like I remember my mom, we were making dinner and she's like, how many pieces of chicken do I need? And I kept counting wrong. I was like, you need 3. And she's like, your dad, your brother, me, you. How's that 3? And I'm like, 1, 2, 3. Like I just kept counting it. And it was like, I tell people, because my grandpa has early onset Alzheimer's, I'm like, it's different when you think you're right and then you see the shock on everyone else's face and you're wrong, and it's scary. And I go, and it's so much easier to get mad than to be scared and be like, cool, my brain isn't working and I don't know what's right or wrong. Please tell me how to feel. And so I learned to I kind of joke about things. I'm like, oh, well, like I brush it off, but that took a lot of time. Like I used to, if I would mess up a word, with the aphasia, if I couldn't think of something, like I would focus until like come to me, and I drive myself crazy. Whereas now I'm like, oh, well, like on lives, I'm like, I don't know what word I'm trying to say. Someone help me. And I feel like just being not so hard on myself. And that took other people reminding me, like, normal people mess up words too. Normal people forget crap too. Like, I feel like as survivors, we're so hard on ourselves. We are so much more critical, and we notice things that other people don't notice. And that's what I've really tried to work on, is like, no wonder my confidence is crappy. I'm always focusing on the things that need improvement, instead of being like, you know what, I'm great at this, and starting my day with like the things that I'm good at. And of course, always still working on the stuff that needs improvement. But I've really just tried to celebrate myself more, because I I was always in this like maintenance phase where like I'm constantly need to be working on something. And I was like, at the end of the day, I'm like, no wonder I feel like crap because I'm just telling myself all day how I need to work on something. So if you can just find like one thing in your day that you're like, I'm good at this. I'm proud of that. And I've tried to celebrate myself more.
I noticed earlier you said, Tawny, you said something about breathing. Angelia, I think we've done 15. We're gonna do number 16 this Friday. She leads a breathing class that we put on every Friday at 11. And they're on YouTube for people who don't can't make it Friday. Also, she she pretty much runs, I guess it's my group, but she pretty much runs our wellness group by posting a lot and sharing a lot of information. And she brought us. I'm just placing her because I think it's great. I'm going to definitely encourage the two of you to get together and when you go to Ohio, because I don't know. Sometimes I connect dots, and I somehow think there's something more here that could come of all this. It's one reason I sent you the links to the wellness group and the nutrition group. Angelie also brought us a functional nutrition chef, and she started posting in wellness as well as our nutrition group. Because, I mean, how do you separate wellness and nutrition? Nutrition is part of wellness. I mean, same with yoga and breathing and whatever. So I thought it was interesting that you mentioned breathing, because all of us have found it to be very useful. I wouldn't say I was negative about it going into it, because Angelie and I talked about it and we decided it was a good idea and we did it. But I've been surprised at the benefits. Sort of the same with yoga. I mean, I knew both of them were good, but it kind of drives it home when it starts happening to you instead of hearing about it anecdotally. So anyway.
Oh, I'll be honest. I thought I was not. I mean, I was into yoga because I was into yoga before, and luckily the school that I worked at, my co-teacher, she was a yoga instructor, and we were actually teaching the kids, and it was amazing to watch these kids with special needs be able to like sit there and do yoga and breathe, and we were watching how it was helping. And it was nice because she was able to give me alternatives because I could not bend over, and yoga is mostly up, down, and my equilibrium was off. So it's really helpful to have someone be able to show me different ways to do it. But the breathing in the beginning, everyone kept saying it. And I was just in such a different headspace that I'm like, when you're super upset, you're like, I'm breathing. Okay, I'm breathing. And you're like, this isn't helping. And I'm like, because I was so high strung and stressed. And so I did a lot of guided meditation, and it just takes time. So if you're new and you have that, like, you're like, I'm doing it, it's not freaking working, like, keep doing it. Just keep doing it in days and days and weeks. And then finally it will just click, and you'll find yourself like in normal life situations, like, like the doctor, when I was on hold with them and she's like, I need to put you back on hold again. I was like, okay, we're just going to take a deep breath. All okay. And there's a reason why everybody says it works. It really does. I mean, I'm sure she's gone over all the physiological reasons why it helps. And that has changed the game for me, especially with my panic attacks. It's been at least a month now I've had one. And I just know that someone was like, oh, it seems like you're not really having trouble with that anymore. And she was like, oh, did you heal from it? And I was like, I mean, I just think I got better tools to handle it. I don't think that my anxiety and my panic attacks will go away. I don't think I can be cured from it. I just feel like I've gotten more practice, and I've started to learn to retrain my body when I'm like, I used to have it about flying, and I was able to rationalize. I'm like, you're worried, even though you got approval, that you're worried that the pressure up there is going to make something happen, and you're worried they're going to misdiagnose you again. Because I always fly by myself and I look young. And so I was like, it's a rational fear. But now whenever I fly and I start getting all nervous, I'm like, this is your body just trying to protect you. Like, it is okay. You're going to be completely fine. Like, and then usually I'll wear a medical bracelet when I fly. And so I've just learned and gotten more practice with it. And I think the breathing just comes along. So that's something, if I could go back to me in the beginning, like I wasn't doing it consistently because I kept being like, this isn't working for me. I don't understand all this breathing stuff. I'm just freaking frustrated. And like, so I know if you see me now, you're like, you always were great. No, I did not. I thought the meditation, I was like, because when I meditate, my brain goes to all the things that I should be doing. I'm like, oh, we have this moment. Okay, I need to do this with the laundry. And I start listing things. And it helped me with a guided meditation. He was like, are you a planner, or do you go back to things that you wish you could fix? And if you're constantly living in the past and the future, you're not recognizing the present. So I was like, I have to tell myself still when I meditate, like I will start listing things. And I'm like, you can do that after. This is your moment right now to just let your brain just be and not think about all the things you need to do. And so I hope.
I would agree that it takes time and just stick with it. We also have a adaptive yoga class, chair yoga class that my sister-in-law puts on every Sunday. And it's very subtle. I knew I should be doing it, and I just did it. A few months before I started, I went to touch my toes, and I came up about 4 inches short. I didn't practice. I practiced intensely for about 2 days and then gave up on it, forgot about it. And 6 months, a year after a yoga class, I just said, I wonder if all the stretching is helping it. I reached down and touched my toes, no problem whatsoever. One thing I'm going to say for mostly the, I was going to say studio audience, but we don't have a studio, is that, just stick with it. And I always had the feeling in both yoga and in breathing that I must be doing it wrong. And Angelia and some other people pointed out to me, if you feel like you're doing it wrong, you're probably doing it right. Which is, kind of a paradox, but you're shaking your head, Tawny, and I see Angelia shaking her head too. And I kind of found it to be true. So I've stopped trying to overthink it and just go with it. When I try and meditate, I do the same thing. Literally a laundry list of, you mentioned the laundry, but I come up with a laundry list of things that need to be done. And then, you just gotta settle into the nothingness a little bit. You can get to the nothingness, you're doing good, I think. Well, I am. I don't know if I'm doing it right.
Nobody does, right? We're all just trying our best. Nobody knows if and I like that you said about seeing other people, because that's what I always go back to is I'm comparing myself to a video or someone, and like comparison is the thief of all joy. Like my yoga experience is going to look different than yours. And I think the more people who share that, because you start something and you're like, but I'm not doing it right. Or like, I can't do this. And it's like, because you're new to doing it. Like I always bring it back to, when we first started walking, you didn't just try to walk one time and then quit. Like you kept trying until eventually you did it. So I'm just like, I have to just keep trying at this, and it might look different than other people's.
All right. Well,
So I have a quick question for Tawny.
sure.
So you mentioned plant-based medication and you mentioned cannabis.
Yes.
Do you smoke it or?
I do smoke it. I also do have edibles. I have tried tinctures. I know that some people were like, I was told from my doctor I cannot smoke. I use a bong. So that's how I ingest it.
Did you have any reaction to it when you did it like the first time or no?
I did not, but I like with everything, it is trial and error. So start very small. I don't know what state you're in. I know some people, it's amazing if you do have the cannabis shops, because a lot of them the bud tenders are very educated. Like I stick with indica dominants because those are pain. And they quiet my brain from being all over the place. So I know some people are like, I could not smoke an indica during the day. Like I already hit my bong 3 or 4 times today. It's only 9:30 in the morning. But for me, it helps. It just helps so many different things. And so I would suggest that. I know that my doctor, when I told him, he was like, I would prefer you not you like I used to smoke blunts, which have, that has a little bit of nicotine in it. So he's like, please don't do that anymore. So I don't do that. I feel like a bong is great. I know some people are like, I don't like the smell. So edibles are amazing. And with tinctures and edibles, you can definitely, like, there's milligrams and stuff, so you can try out just a little bit and just work yourself into it and see
Like
what
I
works.
know they have like gummies and similar things.
They got gummies, they got Rice Krispie treats, they have like everything. I can't wait for it to become legal everywhere.
So anyhow, quick story, I'm gonna interrupt. I was at the pot store up the road at my house, and they have like all their medicinal stuff and everything, and they have like all the new edibles and whatnot, and they had like top ramen, but there was pot ramen.
They have everything. I used to have them. They looked like little honey sticks, and I would put that in my tea. So like, I mean, I would have that, not obviously at the school, but when I bartended. So they have so many options now. It's amazing.
And Sophia, you live in New Jersey, which I believe last year had medical, and last year went to recreational. That's kind of an odd word, but for stroke survivors anyway. I mean, I understand it can be recreational, but I don't think most stroke survivors are driven to smoking for recreational purposes.
Right.
More like, just kind of balancing you out, chilling you out a little bit, slowing you
It
down.
would get some of my pain away. I don't know.
I think
There's been,
CBD is a good option too, and they do a CBD THC mix and they make it into a gummy or a tincture, and I find it to be absolutely fantastic. It helps settle the nerves. It helps settle the spasticity. It has helped like all these different aspects that were like blocking me from even being able to process through thought, emotion, the external sensory things that I was struggling with. It just seemed to kind of like calm my central nervous system to a point where I could focus and begin to heal the way that I needed to. I agree completely. But I don't think smoking is always the best idea. Not that I don't smoke from time to time. It's just not always the best idea, just because we came from a place where the smoke will cause problems within our body. It deoxygenates your blood, and that is usually an issue. That's why I try to do tinctures or some kind of form of gummy or edible. They make a CBD rub. It's a CBD THC rub that you can buy as well.
I'm glad you talked about that.
You can put that on your affected side, and I have found that's been incredibly helpful with how tight my actual body can get. So, yeah, I would look into it.
I would
I would
definitely
definitely talk to your doctor too.
Yes.
My
Thank you.
soon-to-be ex-wife broke her wrist, and she found the CBD creams to be very good for the pain. And yesterday, Brooke, our friend Brooke, posted a puzzle because she does puzzles, and I thought, puzzles are a valid cognitive thing, and so I made up a group called Puzzles, and I added brain games to it because. So I made up a new group yesterday on puzzles and brain games because there are a lot of things you can do, like Sudoku and crossword puzzles and jigsaw puzzles and things, or testing, recalling things. So there are apps where you, like Simon Says back in the old days, play something and you do it. So anyway, the point is not that, but I was also so I made up that group, and I was texting with Tawny. And we were talking about this issue, and I thought, maybe there should be an herb after stroke group. And the more we talk about it, the more I'm thinking, I wrote it down. I think we're going to have a herb after stroke group here in about an hour. Not that I'm, necessarily trying to promote anything. I try and promote information and let people do my whole philosophy in life with everything is here you go, take it if you want.
Exactly.
And you know, and I'm not going to beat you up over it. You know, I offered people free videos. I call them back twice or so. 3 strikes and you're out. You know, I'm not going to beat up on people. Here you go. You want it, you take it. So that would be the same thing with a group like that, because there's so many people. You know, we see people in the group, in all the Facebook groups, commenting when this comes up, that you know they use various types of things, creams, oils, smoking, edibles, whatever. So I jokingly asked Tawny last night if she wanted to run it for us. As if she doesn't have enough to do mermaiding and everything else. So do mermaids like get together and mermaid and then that kind
I do. I have a couple of photo shoots or fun things where I was with some other mermaids, even mermen. We do have mermen. And it's really fun. So I also, you know, I'm a part of a couple mermaid societies, the Society of Fat Mermaids. So I love when someone's like, I'm too big to be in that mermaid tail. And I'm like, oh, honey, we have all shapes and sizes. You absolutely can be. And it's just a really fun, nice area. And I would absolutely love to help with that group, because giving back to groups and to the community has helped me. It's helps. And I remember that was something that my physical therapist said when I was dealing with depression. She was like, you clearly like to help people. Like, you're a teacher. You wouldn't be helpful if you didn't want to do that. And so
special.
Yeah. And so, I mean, like, that's all I love to do. I have actually had to learn now in this year that what got me through surviving is not what's going to help me thrive. So I had a tendency to put everybody else's needs before me, as I'm learning to put my oxygen mask on first before everybody else.
That's a great one. I'm stealing that. Well, yeah, when they drop down, put yours on first before helping anybody else. Yeah. Good message. So
Billy, I think we should turn you into a mermaid.
I would. Oh, I want to have tails so I can get everybody.
it's a little cold. It's a little cold in Connecticut to get in the sound this time of year, but
I did a snow angel in my mermaid tail. I did. I was like, my dad, I go, is this the weirdest thing you've ever had to do with me?
I love your spirit.
Thank you so much. And I would love to stay here, but I actually have a meeting.
No. You're very generous with your time. We appreciate it. Amazing.
Yeah, great energy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I will be joining more. And I wrote down, so Friday meditation, Sunday is yoga.
Yeah, I'll email you some links. I know you don't use email. I'm trying to only do on one platform.
Will you go to Facebook Messenger? If you got these Facebook groups, stop emailing us. I don't check my email. I did. I told him, right. I was like, why are you texting me and emailing me? Just send it to Messenger. You were probably like, this chick, bossy. I just was like, I don't check my emails. And you're like, well, check them. I'm like, how about we just message?
Well, it's easier. It's a lot easier to get links and things into email sometimes.
Okay.
I can't get links over. It's harder to get links over to phone message than anything. Messenger. I'll only harass you on one platform from now on. I'm so glad I met you. I'm so glad that you came and shared your story, and but more importantly, a lot of your wisdom. You know, you learned a lot here. We consider ourselves, our whole philosophy is we consider ourselves pay it forward people, and you are clearly one. I recognize that right away. And you know, basically, if they don't give us what we want, then we'll figure it out for ourselves, won't we? So we'll just keep on pushing that elephant. That's how you move them.
Love it. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.